Welcome to the Stories of the Jewish Church. This is part 2. If you haven't watched part 1, I highly recommend that you go back and click on the first part of this course because I lay some really important foundations at the beginning, and I'm going to be referring to some of the content from the previous course. So it's really a great idea to start watching from the beginning. Now, in the first part of this study, we have been looking at the Jewish Church. An unusual title. And that's what we've been trying to see in the first 4 chapters of the book of Acts. Now, at this point, the Christ followers in Jerusalem have not yet been described as a church, not in the first 4 chapters. Then, after the story of Hananiah and Shapira, we read this: a great fear came all over the whole church and over all who heard these things. This is Acts 5:11. Now, most of all English translations use this word church to translate the Greek word ecclesia. But there's a little bit of a problem with this translation. And that is, by the way, why I entitled my course, The Stories of the Jewish Church. There's a little bit of a disconnect. And I wanted to share with you why I am using such terminology and why I see this as a problem. The problem is that the English word church is not a translation of Greek. It comes not from ecclesia, but from another word with an alternate meaning. Now, according to most dictionaries, English word church came from Proto-Germanic word kirka, or maybe a Saxon word syrica, or Norse kirkia, and perhaps a Dutch kirk. It is a loan word for these languages. These languages are not where this word really even comes from. So the supposition is that the original Greek word is kuriakon. That means of the Lord in Greek, as in the master's house or something like that, the Lord's house. Now, it is true that Christian places of worship in antiquity were called by this word. And of course, the word kurios in Greek means the Lord. And that is a title that can mean Lord as in God. It is references to God and both references to Yeshua, Lord as in master. Whichever way we're going to understand this word doesn't really matter. But the point is the word church supposedly comes from Greek kuriakon. So what do I mean when I say that church is a problematic translation? Well, the fact is that this is a word that does not exist in the original text. And we try to insert this English word into an original text, it will cause some problems. Some things simply will not line up, and others perhaps will. So look with me at the famous Matthew 16:18 passage. This is the passage where Peter calls his teacher the Messiah. And thus, he says that he will build the church. Jesus says he will build his church upon that rock. Very famous text. So look with me at what the Greek says. So it says, upon this rock, I will build my church. And so epitate te petra, oikodomoso mu ten ecclesian. The word that I want you to see, to notice, is this word ecclesian. And it really means assembly. And so, of course, all English translations are going to translate this as church. Maybe some will take a little bit of a deviation, but for the most part, that's what you're going to find. And so the word church is what most people are familiar with. And of course, we're talking about this Greek word, ecclesia. Now, just for fun, I decided to pull up Latin translation. This is Matthew 16:18. This is Jerome's Vulgate. This is 4th century of the Common Era. I wanted to see where does this English word really come from. And so one of the first translations of the Bible that I can think of was Latin. And I wanted to see what Latin would say. Now, I'm not an expert at Latin. I'm actually not very comfortable with it, not as with Greek and Hebrew, but that much of Latin I can make out is that the word here is ecclesiam. Ecclesiam is the same as the Greek ecclesia right here. And so it seems that in Latin, the word for church is the same exact word almost as it is in Greek, which just means assembly. And the English word church simply does not seem to originate from Latin here. So in my quest of trying to figure out where does the English word church comes from, I decided to start pulling together the earliest versions of the Bible that I could find in English. So the earliest version of Matthew 16:18 that I could find comes from the Wessex Gospels. This is a West Saxon dialect. This is Old English, 990 CE. I don't think the whole New Testament was translated into Old Saxon at this point. This is just the gospel. So you could see this is published in London way back in the day. And this is Old English. If you were trying to read this page, and I just basically just scan the page directly from that text, if you're going to try to read this page, you're going to have a little bit of trouble because this is not the English that you and I know. I'm not bad at English at all, but I can hardly make out what in the world I'm reading because this is very Old English. And so I'm finding verse 18, and what do I find? I find this reference to Peter, and he's going to build Mine Syrician. Mine Syrician. There's the word church right here in the text. And of course, it does not say church, not in the way that I know that word in English. It uses the word Syrician. I don't quite know what that word meant in the West Saxon dialect in the year 990, but I see that there's a little bit unclear to me what this really is. So I keep searching. I keep trying to follow the trails and try to dig up other ancient translations, the earliest versions of English. So the next one I stumbled onto is Matthew 16:18 in the Wycliffe Bible. Now, Wycliffe Bible is technically Middle English. This is 1380. By the way, the image you see on your screen is an actual scan of the Wycliffe Bible. That's exactly what it looked like. This is handwritten. It's beautiful. This is a nice illuminated manuscript. So, a manuscript from 1380, and I'm looking at the same verse. And what do I find here? I find that I can read this a little bit better. And it says, I will build my kirke. Right here, I have the word that looks a lot like church, actually. It's quite similar. Not quite church yet, but you have this word kirke. So this is Middle English now, not the Old English. So I have to keep looking. I have to try to find where does this English word church really come from? How did the world would it really even come into use? And how do we start to understand it for what it is? So another English translation, this is the Tyndale Bible. Now we're going to the early modern English. This is the year 1526. And I look up the same verse, and what do I find? Here it says, I will build my congregation. So the word kirke here is not being used. This is modern English, not even Middle English anymore. And the word Syrician that was in Old Saxon, that's not showing up here. It's very clear that the Tyndale translation says, I will build my congregation, which is a very accurate translation of the word ecclesia. I totally get it. So I'm confused. The word church is not found in the earliest English translations, not the way I've expected it to be. So I keep searching and I keep looking. And then I come to Bishop's Bible. Bishop's Bible is the official Bible of the Church of England. This is modern English. The year is 1568. And as I read that same verse in the Bishop's Bible, what do I see? I see the same thing, my congregation. I am again surprised. I'm trying to find where's the word church. Where is it coming from? And it seems that the translators of the Bishop's Bible, just like the Wycliffe Bible, seem to translate the word ecclesia, my congregation. So we're not there yet. I keep digging. And the next Bible that I come to is called the Douay Bible. This is the official Catholic translation. So I looked at the Anglican translation, the Church of England. Now I'm looking at the Catholic translation. And this is a translation of Vulgate. Remember, the Vulgate had the word ecclesiam. Okay, so an ecclesiam clearly is a very close connection to the Greek ecclesia. But now here, I'm reading this same verse in the official Catholic translation, And this is modern English, and this is 1582, so just a little bit later, just a tiny bit later after the Church of England version. And here it says, I will build my church. And there it is. This is the earliest reference of an English Bible that I can find where I have the word church. Church, as in the word that I'm used to and the word that you're used to hearing when you read those verses. So right here, the word ecclesia is translated church. This is the first clear translation of ecclesia equals church. I'm trying to find these connections. And so as I keep looking further, of course, I finally come to the 1611 modern English King James Bible. Well, when I say modern English, I'm stretching it a little bit, because if you were trying to read the 1611 King James, you will stumble a few times yourself. So this is a verse actually directly from King James Bible, from 1611 version, and it says, upon this rock, and notice the spellings are a little bit different, I will build my church. Here's the word church again. So the first instance I found was actually a Catholic translation in 1582. And the next instance I found the word church is in 1611 King James Bible. And basically after that, all the Bibles are going to keep saying church, 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 until maybe a modern time when some of this may be reversed.